So now we have to write a test for our handlers that take posts. And if we look at our setup_test_go, we see there are three. There's one for search availability, one for search availability JSON, and one down here for make reservation. So let's set those up. So the first thing we'll do is set up the test as part of our the tests variable. So we're going to have a test for, first of all, let's do post search availability. And that's just the name of the test. The URL is /search availability. Is that spelled right? Yeah, I think so. And it's going to be a post request. And this will take a slice of post data. And we need to specify the necessary information for that. So each entry in the post data consists of a key and a value. The key is the name of the form element, the form input, and the value is whatever's typed in there. So we can just go key. And for post search availability, I think we have start as the name and value, which is a date. We'll put 2020-01-01. Any valid date will do. And we have another one for end. And then we'll just make that a different date. And finally, we have to specify what we want to get back. http.status OK. All right, so there's one. Let's copy this and paste it. And the second one is for JSON, post search availability JSON. That's my name, and the actual URL is JSON at the end of that. And the last one is for make reservation. And we'll call this make reservation post. But it doesn't take start and end. It takes first name, which will make John. And these correspond to the actual inputs on the form. Last name will be Smith. And then it takes an email address, me@here.com. And it takes a phone number, which can be anything. And we'll make it 555-555-5555. All right, so there are the actual test data entries. Now we have to perform the tests. And it's not that difficult. So we do that here. If method is not equal to get, then it must be equal to post. So the first thing we need to do is to construct a kind of variable that is in the format that our test server expects to receive things in. And that's the variable that corresponds to what we're posting in the form. And we can do that really easily. So first of all, we'll create an empty variable in the form that is required by the method we're going to call on our test server. And we'll call that values. And that's going to be an empty URL.values, which is a built-in type, part of the standard library, that holds information as a post request for a variable. Now we need to populate that with our actual entries. So we'll just range over our params variable set in the current test that we're running. And we do that like this, for underscore, because we don't care about the index. And we'll just, a variable called x is equal to range e.params. And as we go through that, we'll just populate values into that values variable, which we do using a built-in method, values.add. And values.add expects two things, the key and the value, x.key, x.value. And now we have our values variable populated with everything necessary to make our post. So once we've done that, we now have to call our TS client again, but we use a slightly different version this time. We still get a response, and we still potentially get an error, which will be nil if everything works the way it's supposed to. And we call it on our TS variable, which is our test server. And again, we call client, but this time we call post form. And post form requires two things, the URL you want to post to and the values you want to post. So the URL we want to post to is exactly the same as it was in get. It's the URL for the test server, which is stored in ts.url, plus e.url, the URL we want to test, and values is just the values that we created just a moment ago. So now we can just do exactly the same thing. We can actually copy what we did in our GET request. So we can copy this, paste it here, and everything should work. So what are we doing? We get our response and our error. If there's an error, fail the test. If there's no error, keep going. And we check our expected status code with the status code we actually get. If they don't match, then we have an error. So let's go back to our terminal window and clear the screen and try running this test. I'm in the correct directory. Yes, I am. Go test-v. And let's see if we got it right. And it failed. And one fail is for make reservation post expected 200 but got 400. Well, what is HTTP status 400? That's actually bad request. And there's one thing we didn't do that we actually have to do, and it's pretty easy to fix. So if we go back to our setup test, you remember when we set up our routes, we said use the no-surf handler or middleware. And no-surf actually checks for cross-site request forgery. And it expects to find a token called CSRF token in the post request. And we actually didn't populate that. And I'm not going to at this point. So one way to fix this is to simply comment that out. Because I'm not testing my no-surf handler. I've already done that in my middleware, and I can do it elsewhere if I want to. It's really not critical for testing this particular method by itself. So I'm going to comment that out, go back to my iTerm, my terminal window, clear the screen, and run that test again. And this time it should pass. And it does. So there is one method of testing post handlers that handle posts. Now, obviously, we probably want to check for things other than just the correct status code coming back. So for example, what if in this test someone somehow submits a value that's not a date for this post or for this post? What if they don't put a valid email address in here? Now we're not checking for any of that right now, and we'll improve these tests as time goes on. But before we can really do that, it would be useful to be able to connect to a database, store some information in that database, and actually handle that part of our application. So we'll be coming back to these tests and adding to them and adding additional tests as time goes on. So in the next section, we'll have a look at testing our render package. And then we'll check coverage and look at what we have to do to actually run our application right now. Because if we try to run our application, well, I'll actually show you right now, and we'll do it easier way later. If I try to run this, I'm in my directory, and I do what we've been doing right along, go run command web star.go, it's not going to work. And it's not going to work because cannot run go test files. Now we can get around that by saying go run command web and then main.go and command web middleware.go and command web routes.go, and then it will run. But there's a shorthand we can do this. We can write a little batch file or a shell script that'll make it easier for us. And we'll do that in a couple of lectures.